Hold on to this number, 30%. That is the margin by which men report reaching orgasm during sex more often than their female partners. Across dozens of large-scale studies involving tens of thousands of participants, couples in new relationships, long marriages, deeply connected partnerships, and everything in between, this gap shows up with remarkable consistency. But before anyone points to age, biology, or compatibility as the culprit, here is what the research actually tells us. This gap is not rooted in anatomy. It is not an inevitable consequence of getting older. And it is almost never about two people simply being wrong for each other. In the vast majority of cases, it comes down to one thing. Men were never given accurate, complete information. And the moment that changes, so does everything else about how intimacy works. My name is Dr. Julia Rouse. I am a certified men's sex therapist with over a decade of clinical experience working with men and couples on sexual health and relational intimacy. In that time, I have encountered the same pattern repeatedly. Men who are genuinely confused, privately frustrated, or quietly unsettled by the sense that their partner is not as satisfied as she could be. And I have also watched what happens when those same men finally receive clear, honest, research-grounded information. Their relationships do not unravel, they deepen. Not because these men become entirely different people, but because they finally understand what had been missing all along. That is the purpose of this conversation. Not myths, not outdated generalizations, just the kind of clarity that actually helps. The gap in plain terms. Let us look at this more precisely. This is not a loosely defined concept. A landmark study published in a respected journal on human sexuality, drawing on data from more than 50,000 adults, identified a consistent pattern. Approximately 95% of heterosexual men report that they usually, or always, reach orgasm during sexual activity, while only around 65% of heterosexual women say the same. That pattern holds across different countries, different age groups, and different relationship structures. Now, this is not about reducing intimacy to a performance metric or treating the bedroom like a scoreboard. Orgasm is not the sole measure of a satisfying sexual experience. For many women, emotional closeness, feeling genuinely desired, and feeling safe in the relationship carry equal or greater weight than the physical outcome alone. That is important to acknowledge. But the gap still matters because it points to something real. Not a deficit in desire, not a failure of attraction, a gap in understanding. Most men were simply never taught how female sexual response actually works. What passed for sex education was frequently incomplete, heavily penetration-focused, and treated female pleasure as either secondary or unnecessarily complicated. But it was never truly complicated. The education was just missing. What anatomy actually tells us? When we look at the physiology more honestly, things come into focus. Research that gained significant recognition in the late 1990s and has continued to be validated since, revealed that the clitoris is not the small, isolated, external structure most people were taught to think of. It is part of a considerably larger internal system with branches that extend deep into the body and wrap around portions of the vaginal canal. What many have historically described as entirely separate anatomical zones are in reality interconnected components of a single, unified system built for pleasure. This matters enormously because it reframes how stimulation works altogether. Female pleasure is not random, not vague, and not inherently mysterious. It is physiological, structured, and highly responsive when it is understood correctly. Large clinical studies on sexual response consistently point to the same finding. A substantial proportion of women either require direct clitoral stimulation to reach orgasm, or report significantly higher satisfaction when that stimulation is central to the experience. For most women, this is not supplementary, it is foundational. And yet, culturally, the dominant message many men received growing up was that penetration is the primary event. The disconnect between what is taught and how the body actually functions is one of the most significant contributing factors to the orgasm gap. This is not a question of skill. It is a question of attention and accurate knowledge. The role of emotional safety. There is another layer here, and it is just as critical as the physical dimension. Research on female arousal consistently demonstrates that the mind and body operate as a connected system, not independently. There is a neurological framework at play, one that responds to signals of safety and stress. When a woman feels emotionally present, genuinely desired, and safely connected to her partner, her body becomes more physiologically open to arousal. When she feels pressured, emotionally invisible, stressed, or disconnected, the body can naturally resist, regardless of what is happening physically. Think of it as a dual system. There is an accelerator, which responds to desire, attentive touch, and emotional warmth. And there is a brake, which responds to tension, emotional distance, and unresolved stress. For many women, the brake system is significantly more sensitive than most men realize. It does not take much to activate it, and no level of technical physical competence can fully override it when it is engaged. This means the real answer to the 30% gap is not found in physical mechanics alone. It is found in understanding both dimensions, the physical and the emotional, and how they interact. When genuine knowledge, attentive presence, and emotional safety are aligned, the experience shifts entirely. Satisfaction stops being a one-sided outcome and becomes something genuinely shared. What this looks like in practice. Emotional safety is not an abstract ideal. In real relationships, it shows up in concrete, everyday ways. It looks like a relationship where she feels valued as a complete person, not only in intimate moments, but consistently. Where appreciation is expressed openly and regularly, not reserved for specific circumstances. Where conflict gets addressed and repaired rather than left to quietly accumulate. Where she can voice a need or a preference without bracing for criticism, defensiveness, or dismissal. For many men, particularly those in long-term relationships, this carries real significance. Patterns built over years do not transform overnight, but they do change through sustained, genuine attention. Men who begin investing in emotional connection outside the bedroom frequently report the most noticeable improvements inside it. Because intimacy does not originate in a physical space. It originates in how two people relate to each other across the entire fabric of daily life. The case for slowing down. If there is a single behavioral shift that produces the most meaningful improvement, it is this: take more time. Research on sexual satisfaction returns to this finding repeatedly. Women, on the whole, want more time, not more elaborate technique. More time for touch, more time for connection, more time before the experience centers on penetration. What is commonly referred to as foreplay is frequently treated as a preliminary step in the process. For most women, it is the process. Physiologically, female arousal typically requires more time to build than male arousal. The body needs adequate time to reach full comfort, natural lubrication, and genuine responsiveness. Studies suggest that many women need approximately 20 minutes or more of arousal-building stimulation before penetration feels fully comfortable and pleasurable. In practice, most couples spend considerably less time than that. For men navigating the natural changes that come with aging, there is something worth recognizing here. A slower, more deliberate sexual rhythm is not a limitation. For many women, it is precisely what they have always responded to most. Men who embrace this shift frequently find that their connection becomes richer, more relaxed, and more mutually satisfying, because the pace finally matches what their partner's body needed all along. Her body changes over time as well. Following menopause, declining estrogen levels can affect vaginal tissue and natural lubrication. This does not indicate a reduction in desire. Many women remain deeply and genuinely interested in intimacy. But it does mean the body may call for more patience, more attentiveness, and sometimes simple practical adjustments such as lubrication or gentler pacing. What matters most in these moments is not technique, it is attitude. When a man responds to these changes with patience rather than frustration, with curiosity rather than assumption, he communicates something powerful without saying a word, that she is still desired, still valued, still wholly important to him. That message alone can meaningfully increase both emotional openness and physical responsiveness. Communication as the final bridge. Most women do not fully articulate what they want sexually. Not because they do not know, but because the environment has not consistently felt safe enough for that kind of honesty. As a result, many couples operate on assumption rather than clarity, and the gap between what she wants and what actually happens quietly widens over time. The couples who experience the greatest transformation are those who learn to talk openly, not in the charged atmosphere of an intimate moment, but in the calm, low-pressure context of everyday life. Asking straightforward questions, what feels good, what could feel better, what she would like more of, can fundamentally change the entire dynamic of a relationship. The essential ingredient is how those answers are received. Listening without defensiveness. Responding with genuine curiosity rather than ego. When communication becomes a two-way exchange, where both partners feel comfortable being honest, it stops functioning as feedback and starts functioning as connection. Bringing it together. The 30% gap is not a biological inevitability. It is not a mystery. It is the predictable result of incomplete education, emotional disconnection, rushed pacing, and communication that never quite opens up. None of these are permanent conditions. All of them are addressable. With accurate knowledge, genuine emotional presence, and a willingness to slow down and listen, the experience changes for both people. Because real intimacy was never about technical execution. It was always about understanding your partner fully as a whole person and building something together that feels meaningful for both of you. That understanding is what closes the gap, and that is what transforms everything.